Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Lene Show. As always, I appreciate those of you who tune in, my continued listeners. Thank you very much. And if you're new here, I hope you enjoy this episode and check out previous ones. Today's episode is really more of a therapy session for me because my therapist isn't available. Today marks the first anniversary of losing my grandmother. 365 days without her. And not one day has helped the previous day or the next day. And it's really hard. And so I decided to just do an episode on grief and just how I'm trying to cope, how I see my kids dealing with it, how I see my mom dealing with it. It's hard. It's really hard. And for those of you who don't understand the loss of a grandparent, it's really like losing your parent, especially if you have the relationship that I had and my kids had with my grandmother. She wasn't just my mom's mom, I know some people who, only see their grandparents on holidays, or even if they have a relationship, it's not exactly the same. It's like, oh, these are my parents and I love them, and they give the best gifts, or they were always sweet to us when we grew up and things like that. And sometimes you don't even build a really strong bond until they're much older, and maybe they move in with your parents, or if unfortunately your parents passed before them and maybe you ended up taking care of them. But for me, and I know there are people who have the same type of relationship. I feel like especially in Black families or Latin and Black families, our grandparents are different. A lot of times they literally helped raise us. They were in the same home. And for me, that was what my grandmother was. She raised me and my brother for a very long time while my mom got herself together. And then I'm not going to go into that, but, my mom was a young mom as well, a single mother, and she had to deal with things that a lot of young people go through when you have kids and you aren't stable, you know what I mean? Or you don't have everything together like me. If you've listened to my podcast, you know that I was a teen mom, and obviously 18 is not the age to be having children. I had a job where I was getting paid $7 an hour. So my mom, I had a couple of things going on, and my grandmother had to step up and step in, and she did that for a very, very long time, and it allowed my mom to get things in order. And even once my mom did get things in order, which she did, and she ended up being the mom that she needed to be just a little later, and I praise her every day, and she's phenomenal, my mom. But even when she got her stuff together, my grandmother was still there. There's only been a handful of times in my life that I didn't live with her. I lived with her as an adolescent until my mom got it together. And then me and my brother would see her every weekend. She was basically, like we would see her every weekend. She took us everywhere. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I am an introvert, because both my mom and my grandmother kept me and my brother pretty much not secluded. We did things. We traveled. We went, to the zoo. We went places, but it was always just them. It was always just my grandmother. Then it was just my grandmother and my mother. And then things my mom would do would just be us and her. We didn't do a lot of things with friends. It was just constantly them. And then, once I had my first daughter, I ended up moving back in with my grandmother, and I lived with her for years. I was living with her when I had my second. And then I moved out on my own, just, to to show that I had grown, and she gave me such support. Like, I didn't have to pay any bills. As long as I took care of my kids and I was doing something with my life, that's all she asked me for. She never asked me for rent, for food, for nothing. And of course, I did contribute because that's what I wanted to do, but it was never asked of me. All that was asked of me is, take care of your kids and do something with your life. You made some mistakes. You're a young mom, but that doesn't have to define you. And that's pretty much how my grandmother was. She allowed me to make mistakes, but also let me grow from them, and never, ever, ever made me feel a kind of way about it. I mean, listen, she's a parent, just like every parent. Was she disappointed with my first daughter? Yes, she was very disappointed. She was upset because I had so much potential, and there were things that I wanted to do. I wanted to join the Air Force. I had plans. I really, really did. I wasn't one of those kids that was just out running around. I had plans for my life, and she was very hurt and disappointed that that's not the road I took. And I feel like that's any, parent. That's normal. My mom was the same way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want better for your kids. And so initially there was a little bit of a pushback, but once my daughter was here and once she realized that, there's nothing that can be done at this point, she welcomed me with open arms and we moved forward, and it's never been any pushback since then. And with my second daughter, she was, the complete opposite. You know, you're going to have this baby. We're going to get through it. What's the next steps? Okay, this is what's going on. It was just, she definitely was my biggest supporter. She was strict, very stern, a Caribbean woman, grew up that way. There were just certain things that, of course, she expected. But, man, when I had those kids, she was my best friend. And it's hard. It's hard to constantly say to myself that she's not here. My kids adored her. This was their great grandmother, but you wouldn't have known that. The relationship they had with her is just so weird. It's not weird to me. It's just, I don't see that with a lot of people. I don't see that, especially with a great grandparent. My kids could go to her for anything. And if I was upset or they were in trouble, they knew that Nana would get them out of it or help them through it. Her loss is something that we're literally fighting every day to accept. And I just, I'm sitting here like, it's been a year and I still am in such a disbelief, like I think about the day that she dies every single day. I think about it. I think about how hard it is to accept. And I miss hearing her, just even the noise. She had a really bad hip and she needed a hip replacement. But unfortunately, her health conditions didn't allow it. And so she was always in a lot of pain. And just, I miss hearing her noise that she would make when she'd move from side to side to get comfortable. I miss her smell. I miss the sound of her voice. I hear her when I close my eyes. It's hard. It's hard. And, the days just go to the next day. There's a song that I used to listen to years ago that I just like the song, but it is a sad song. It's called Lost Without You. It's an artist. Her name is Fine Frenzy. And I love that album that she has. That's my favorite album. I listen to it all the time. All of her songs are. Um, oh, I'm sorry, I hit the button there. If you just heard that bell, that was an accident. You might also hear my cat, who doesn't care that I'm recording and wants to get on my nerves. Um, and make all this meowing sound. So if you hear him, I apologize. He's being super needy right now, which is annoying. But anyway, yeah, this artist called her name is Fine Frenzy, and she has this song. And like I said, if you don't know her, grab her album. It's a really good album. But she it's one of the lines in the song is, the world carries on without you, but nothing remains the same. I'll be lost without you until the last of days. And I completely agree with that. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it feels. It feels like the world continues. The days just go. They just continue to go. And get out. Sorry about that, guys. I had to pause again because my cat's acting up, and somehow I keep hitting that bell button. I don't know how. It's getting annoying. It's ridiculous at this point. Um, yes, and that's basically, how I feel. I feel like the world continues to go, that, nothing, everyone else is moving on with their life, which is, of course, what you're supposed to do. When someone dies, that's a part of life. We know we're all gonna die someday. Um, and my grandmother, I think one of the reasons why it's more difficult to accept is because it happened out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? She wasn't. I mean, my grandmother was sick in the sense of she did have a bad heart. If I didn't mention, she did die from a heart attack. So she did have a bad heart. She had a bad hip. And she was slightly overweight, which was causing a lot of the issues and why certain things couldn't have been done, because there were so many different factors that were affecting her. But she wasn't in the hospital. She didn't have like a stroke or something before where it's like, okay, we see where this might be going. I saw, I talked to her, and that day, and the day was a little rocky, and 2 hours after I saw her, she died. And it just happened out of nowhere, because when I left her, she was awake, she was talking, she was fine in that moment. You know what I'm saying? It's not like something was going on that I expected, for her to die. You know what I mean? So that's the problem. It's the fact that it came out of nowhere. And for her to die and me not really feel like I had a chance to, I said I love you to her before I left, and I made like a joke or whatever to her, and it was the week before my birthday, so we briefly mentioned what I was doing preparing for my birthday, but it still wasn't what I would have wanted, and I get it. Some people are lucky enough to say goodbye. Like with my dad, I got that chance. Just quickly, my dad passed from colon cancer. He got diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and they gave him a year, and he lived 8 months. But I got the opportunity to talk to him, and I was there when he died. I was there when he took his last breath, and I made my peace with it. It was still hurt. I was still distraught when he died, and it took a long time, maybe a year or even 2, for me to really, not just accept it and not be sad. Now when every once in a while, I definitely, I'm like, oh my goodness, my dad's really not here. But it's not a sad when I can think of him. I think about all of the good things. I think about the memories that we have, the good ones. I think about, certain events and things that I did with him that always will stand out, that I'm glad that I get that memory. So, but I got to say, goodbye. And it's just, there's a difference when losing someone and you get that, compared to when you lose someone and it happens out of nowhere, where someone maybe, if they get, in a car accident, or, fall somewhere, whatever, things that don't give you a chance, even sometimes with cancer, you sometimes get that chance because it may happen, and you get time to prepare and things like that. But that we didn't get that with my grandmother. There was no preparation. There was no, hey, this is what's going to happen. There's no changing it. She's going to die. You know what I mean? We didn't get that. And I understand that we don't always get that. That's a luxury. But it doesn't make it hurt less. I'm still grieving. I'm still hurting that I left her, and I replay the day, and there's so many things I wish I could do different. And I get it. We all, if we could all change it, I understand people said that, but this is just me explaining, how I feel and how this is affecting me in my day to day, and just, knowing that it's been a difficult task for me. It really, really has. And I don't, I just get up and go. That's pretty much it. I don't really have any advice other than, I get up, I go to work, I have my kids. I have like 2 friends, and even that's whatever. I'm just, sometimes I feel super lost, and I guess these are the times where having a partner, because, you have friends, but your friends are going through their own stuff. You know what I mean? Like, of course, if you reach out, the real ones will be there and help you and give you that hour to cry, or listen to you, or, just give you that shoulder. But they got their own stuff. They got their own families. They got their own stuff. And sometimes, they're just not available for you. And that's okay, And I guess sometimes this is where, loneliness could set in, because even with my kids, I don't want them to have to deal with mine. I mean, they're already dealing with their own, like, I'm there for them. I'm there when they are sad and they're grieving and they're going through their own stuff. And I want them to be able to know that I am here. So, this is sometimes where the loneliness kicks in. And I've said on other episodes, I'm divorced. And one of the things I miss the most about, having a partner is your constant person to listen to you. When you go to bed, and, last night I went to bed super depressed, super sad. And I had to have a drink because I was like, I just got to go to sleep. When you have a partner, that's what they're there for. You wouldn't have to do that. I get to go to bed and tell them I'm sad today. And just hold me throughout the night and all that stuff. Things like that you just, it stands out more when you're grieving or going through anything, whether it's grief, whether it's the loss of a job, whether it's financial, whatever. Whenever you're going through something, this is when not having a partner, sticks out. And that's what I miss the most. Just having somebody there to talk to and to call. And even if you don't live with them, I'm just saying, having that in general. I know that would help so much, but, I don't have it. And, I'm not in a rush, because I know that God is going to send me, hopefully, someone someday. And, I just have to be patient with that. But I just feel like, I just feel lost some days. Like, I feel like I just don't want to go or do. I do. I get up, I go to work, I do hang out with my friends, I go to the movies by myself, I'll go out, I keep busy. I'm not, and there are, the days that I can't, I just don't. I stay in my bed. I binge something. I just don't go to work. I say, hey, today ain't the fucking day. You ain't gonna get nothing out of me today. I'm just gonna chill. And I just try to find things that help me with that. And therapy, obviously, is if you've listened to my podcast before, I'm a huge fan of therapy. Without that, I'd probably be worse off. I I can't do this alone because some days I just can't do. Um, and I try to think about my grandmother and what she would, and that would, she was the most selfless person I know, literally. Like, clothes off her back, last quarter in her pocket, she's giving it to you. And she would never want me or my kids or my mom, she would never want us to um, be sad or depressed or not continue living. That's just not the type of person she was. I mean, when people say that about people, that was real with her. She would have never have wanted that. She never wanted to be a burden. That alone is something that she was battling herself, feeling like she was a burden, feeling like, we weren't able to do things or go somewhere or do something without her. And she just didn't, and I hated that because she wasn't a burden. And of course, sometimes I'm human. Sometimes it was a lot. And it was just because she was so stubborn. She was a stubborn woman and you couldn't tell her nothing. And she just wanted to do things her way. Get down!